Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel Amazing Things. My name is Stacy. Today we are going to be making easy bread. This is a no knead, no dairy, super easy bread recipe that I have made for years now, at least once a week. Guaranteed though, if you start making this bread, you'll probably be making it a couple times a week until everyone gets used to it. But what you are going to need today is this. We're going to use our KitchenAid mixer with the bread dough hook. You need bread flour, sugar, oil, doesn't matter if it's canola oil or vegetable oil, salt, yeast, Crisco for buttering our pans. You need two 9x5 pans. You're gonna need a 1/4 cup, a 1/3 cup, a 1 cup, and a tablespoon. And you're gonna need 2.5 cups of hot water and a rolling pin. So let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna put in our bowl, we're going to use our 1/3 cup, and we're going to put 1/3 cup sugar. Then you're going to do 1/3 cup oil. Now, if you put the oil in first, now I do the sugar so I don't have to dirty up two containers first, but if you put the oil in early on, you won't get stuff sticking to the bottom of your bowl so much. Okay, then you're gonna do 1 tablespoon of salt. Now this bread recipe does make 2 loaves. So this is 1 tablespoon of salt spread out over 2 loaves. Then you're going to need 3/4 cup of your bread flour. Now I don't do the knife. If you want to, feel free, but I just kind of measure and shake until I get to the amount that I want. All right, now that you're gonna have all that, you need hot water. Now hot water, I mean between 100 and 120 degrees. If it's less than 100, your bread dough is not going to rise. If it's over 120, it's going to kill your yeast. It does come out hot enough from my tap, but you might want to get a thermometer and just double check. Otherwise, you'll need to heat water probably on the stove. But you're going to need 2.5 cups of hot water. Okay, so I have my 2.5 cups. I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. And then we'll mix it just a little bit. And then you're gonna add your yeast. So this is the yeast I'm using right now, but any yeast will do. And you are going to need 1.5 tablespoons of yeast, and I just sprinkle this all around. If you get a little bit over, a little bit less, it'll be okay. And then we're gonna let that yeast sit there for about a minute, just so it starts to activate with the warm water. And with this, you'll start to see the yeast granules kind of spreading out. You'll start to see them getting darker, but we're gonna let that sit for just a little bit. Okay, once it's been sitting there for about a minute, we're gonna mix it just a little. Then we're gonna add our 5 cups of bread flour. So 1 cup. Lower this. Okay, once you have your 5 cups in, we're going to start mixing it until it becomes a ball of dough. I am going to be scraping the sides as we go. If you are not confident about scraping while it's going, then stop it. And I'm sure it's not recommended either. But as we mix, I'm going to be scraping the sides just to get it all incorporated. And you're going to mix it on the lowest setting. now that everything's incorporated and you can start to see it kind of pulling and leaving those strings, that means the gluten's activated, everything's mixed. And what I do is I take a little bit of oil and pour it in the bottom. I'd say maybe a tablespoon of oil. And I put some on my hands to get it off the dough hook so it doesn't stick so much. This out of the way. So now you can see we have our ball of dough. All you're going to do is you're going to flip it around the bowl to coat it in that oil we just put in. And if you don't have a mixer, you can definitely mix this bread by hand. You don't have to have a mixer. Just makes it a little cleaner for your hands. So you just mix it until it's all coated. And then all we're gonna do is we're gonna set this aside in a warm place to rise, and we're gonna cover it with a clean dish towel. In this bowl, this is one of the larger size bowls, it's a 6-quart, so it's gonna rise to just below the lip of the bowl. If you have the smaller size bowl with your KitchenAid, then it's gonna rise to the top and even bubble over a little bit. But basically you want this to double, almost triple in size, and you'll get 2 loaves out of this. So we're gonna let this rise for about 30 minutes at the least, and sometimes if it's a little colder where you are, you're going to need to let it rise for about an hour. All right, so we'll let this rise, and then with movie magic, we will come back and see it fully risen and start on the second part. And we are back. So here is our risen dough. You can see mine's gone up to about there. Like I said earlier, if you have a smaller bowl, this will rise all the way to the top, but this has pretty much doubled in size. So what we're gonna do first is I am going to grease our pans. Now, I prefer the lighter color just because to me it just doesn't burn the edges as much, so I prefer the lighter color pans. But if all you have is dark, then go ahead and try it and maybe cook a little less just to make sure you don't get that browning. And these are 9x5 bread loaf pans. And I am one of those that I have special pans for my bread. So these are only for bread, not the quick breads. I have different pans for quick bread. So this is only for my loaf bread that I make each week. So we're gonna make sure we get the corners really good, and the bottom and the sides on both pans. All right, and then we're gonna set those aside and we're going to roll out our bread dough. So this one, you are not going to use flour. You are going to go back to your oil, and what we're gonna do is do a line of oil. You don't need a whole lot. And then we're gonna make sure our rolling pin here has oil. And then you're gonna take your bread dough, here, pick it up and divide it in half. So I kind of just eyeball it. I am not one of those that's gonna be super exact. If one loaf is slightly bigger than the other one, that's okay. So I kind of like to have mine nice and long. We are gonna try and roll it to the same width as our pan. If you go over the width, you can just tuck in the sides, but that's about what we're aiming for. So you're just gonna roll it out. And it doesn't have to be super, super thin, but we want it to be a little bit thinner, and then we start to roll the edge, kind of like you would a jelly roll or a pumpkin roll if you've made any of those. So, and then you get to your seam, and your seam side goes down. Now you can see that mine rolled a little bit longer, so we'll just tuck that down in. And you have your little bread log or roll in there. And then we're gonna repeat for the second one. So I kind of just shape it long and skinny like a rectangle and then roll. And I don't want to over roll because then every time I've over rolled it doesn't rise as well as I like it to. We put it seam side down into the bread thing. So now we have two. And that is it, folks. All we're gonna do is cover this with our clean dish towel and let it rise. You're gonna let it rise until it's about an inch over your pan, and then we're gonna cook it at 350. So come back in just a few when we have these ready to cook, and I'll show you what they look like. All right, they are ready. They have risen. You can see that mine's a little bit off center, but it has risen an inch above the pan for both of them, and they'll rise a little bit more as you cook them. I have preheated my oven to 350, so we are going to cook them. Now, I live at a higher elevation. I'm above 6,500 feet, so for me, I'm going to cook these at about 31 minutes. If you're at a lower elevation where we used to live, where it was 1,100, I cooked them for about 28 minutes, but I do have others who have made them at lower elevations, and they prefer to cook them even less. So I would say start checking them around 24 minutes if you're at a lower elevation, but you will still cook them at 350 in the oven. So let's put them in. All right, we have taken them out of the oven. These cooked for about 31 minutes, and I let them cool on a cooling rack. But as you can see, they turned out absolutely delicious. Everything is cooked, and they look yummy. They are still a little bit warm. You want to make sure they are completely cool before you actually put them away. And I actually use old vegetable bags from the grocery store to store mine in, and they'll stay in there for a good week or so. So let's cut one of these open so you all can see. All right, there it is, folks. So yummy and delicious. And there's your bread. Perfect bread for the next week. All right, thank you all for joining me. I hope that you had a great time and you try this recipe. And if you did, please like us and comment below how it worked for you. And we hope to see you on our next video. Thank you.